It is another edition, orange and blue today. Cecil, Lammey, Andrew, Mason, and the idea of Bo Nix, Mace. It's not just the hot buzz talk. It's something you and I've been talking about for a long, long time. And I said last night on Denver Sports Tonight, fans should not just like this, but potentially love this move if that's the move for the Broncos.
Well, it's the move that allows you to maintain, if not expand upon your draft capital, if you wanted to run the risk of not getting him and moving down a few picks and maybe adding something on day two. But how many times do we talk about the fit for a player? Bo Nix isn't going to fit quite a few offenses, I would say, in the NFL. I don't think that's going to maximize what he can do. Sean Payton's offense, rhythm, timing, get the ball out quickly. Most of it is short to intermediate. Most of it is across the middle or very short off to the flanks. That actually suits what Bo Nix has been proven to be able to do and can do in terms of accuracy. You could probably say at a higher level than the other quarterbacks that are in this draft class. So he's not a fit for everybody, but he might be the perfect fit for the Broncos.
Well, and here's the thing, Mason. We'll chop it up and we'll talk ball because that's what it's about. I feel almost in a way like McCarthy, but we're sticking with Nix for this show. Like when people say he's a robot, he's running the system as it's designed. Are there a lot of micro passes? Yes, but we've seen, thanks to Mike Tanier and his yards per attempt under pressure number, when he's pressured, he will attack. There is that mode within him. So don't think that he's just a robot. Like I feel like George Lucas when he says robot. He's just a robot. Like, no, actually, I think he could be more.
I think he could be more as well, specifically in this offense. And, you know, how much of it, when it was flourishing in New Orleans, was about setting up the receivers for success. How much of it was leading the receivers. That is one thing that, to his credit, that's evident on the Oregon film, especially more so than the Auburn film, is that Bo Nix can do that very well. And, you know, does he have the driver in his bag, so to speak? No. Okay. I would say, for example, I'm not sure Bo Nix would get the most out of Courtland Sutton if you're looking at the Broncos receivers. Mm-hmm. I think the vision for Marvin Mims Jr. might actually change a little bit from somebody who maybe you're thinking of him as a go route guy who has to, you know, has to improve and has to, as I've said a few times, grow some branches on the route tree. But maybe you start thinking of Marvin Mims Jr. more as somebody who's getting the ball underneath and short and setting him up to make people miss after the catch. Somebody like Jaleel McLaughlin coming out of the backfield, I think, would also benefit from Bo Nix. I mean, I think we talked about McLaughlin and how teams were keen to him. They saw him go on the field. They shaded over to him, and that diffused a lot of potential plays. But if you're getting him the ball in space, you want to give him a nice, accurate ball that he can, you know, that he can guide to, that can be led to him, and then he can make a play. And that was not something Russell Wilson did very well, but it might be something that Bo Nix can do well at this level. And oh, by the way, that's part of under pressure because, you know, you have pressure building on the screen. The screen game is designed to force the quarterback to operate under pressure, right?
Yep.
And then capitalize on that pressure and work it against the defense. So I think there would be some real opportunities there that probably didn't exist for the Broncos offense last year.
Yeah, it's like football kung fu. And we've said it before, screens are actually difficult throws. I know people say, just throw them behind the line of scrimmage. Like, actually, it's a difficult throw. The timing of it, the selling of it, and that's where this offense, and you said the magic word, it's space. Mm-hmm. I want to see Sean Payton with a guy that knows how to operate within space. Is the top of the field, the 60-yard bomb, is that going to be there? Not really, but is the spacing going to be there provided by the design of the offense? I think the answer is yes.
Space needs to be more than just the final frontier in this offense.
You and I could have plenty of space references, that's for sure.
Yes, but there wasn't an ability to capitalize off the space that was there last year. I mean, just as we talk about this, my mind kind of churns back to the missed screen passes, the missed swing passes where Russell Wilson threw it high, threw it low,
batted down.
Like these are things that kept the offense from really operating on schedule. I know we focused on the sacks and the pass rush and how much of that was on the quarterback last year. And we even touched on it yesterday with Jarrett Stidham asking, is he really that much better than Russell Wilson? I'd say based on what I've observed, no. But this also comes into play because if, it's to go back to all the way back to Bill Walsh in the 1980s, using the running backs in the screen game and the swing game as it's just another way of running the ball. It's another way of having ball control, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And oh, by the way, it's a way of having ball control that fits some of your players better. It probably fits Samaje Perine better. It definitely fits Jaleel McLaughlin better until you kind of figure out, what the answer is at running back. I think you and I both agree one of the Broncos draft picks is going to be on a running back in this class.
Yes.
I'm rooting for Braylon Allen, but we'll see what happens. But oh, by the way, Braylon Allen presents some interesting possibilities if he's a Bronco as well in the screen game, because not only does he have pass catching ability, which he improved last year at Wisconsin, but at that size, 240 plus, hello mismatch.
Mm-hmm.
And, if we're today I'm visualizing Bo Nix. If I visualize Bo Nix throwing to Braylon Allen in the flat, some colossal things might happen if that's a part of your offense, right? Yes. That's, and that's going to, and oh, by the way, you get the screen game going, it's going to open things up downfield. And then Bo Nix maybe can go vertical a little more because you bring the safeties up to account for the running backs out of the backfield. You've got more space downfield. And then Bo Nix, who, he's just not going to get it there with velocity. Bo Nix doesn't have the Drake May arm where it's 40 yards on a rope downfield. If he's getting it downfield, it's going to have some loft. It's not going to, it might tail off a little bit. But if you've got more space down there because the safeties have been forced to account for things underneath, then you have more of a margin for error, and that's where your vertical game can come from.
Yeah, and that's where, when you get to the red zone, Courtland Sutton comes back into play, because we talked to Matt Waldman about the hero ball that you see from J.J. McCarthy at times in the red zone, the hero ball you most definitely see from Drake May, especially in the red zone. Well, with Nix, it's like, okay, you've got that security blanket of Sutton. And Braylon Allen, I could see it. I'll give you another one that's not Marshawn Lloyd, is Jalen Wright. I don't think he's Alvin Kamara, and I'm not helmet scouting. But when you talk about speed, just absolute speed from a guy that, like Kamara, is probably going to be a third-round pick, you get that extra speed. I like the Allen idea because of the power. I thought you were going to talk about tight sphincters from the, whoever safety or whatever that's tasked with covering him, a linebacker out of the backfield. Like, yeah, there's going to be some tight sphincters with Braylon Allen. With Jalen Wright, you won't even get a chance to put a hand on him if you get that kid in the open space.
Yeah. I mean, really, with Jalen Wright, if I could just cut the fumble rate a little bit, he had, especially back in the 22 season, fumbles were a problem with him. I'd be totally on board. But I do think it's interesting as we're sitting here having these conversations, that we're asking ourselves who are the best running backs to partner with a potential quarterback. And that's the key, and that I think is a key thing. And it also goes back to fit. If you do invest, whether it's number 12 or trade down and pick him 22 or 23, if you do invest a first round pick in Bo Nix, that is something of a mandate. And that's also making a decision that you like Bo Nix better than anybody you might be able to get in next year's draft class as well. But this is likely to be the quarterback who determines the success or failure of the Sean Payton era. And so to get the most out of that, you have to surround him with players who can allow him to deliver on the promise of his skill set. And that's going to mean finding players who can flourish in the screen game.
Yeah. Now you're scaring me a little bit, Mace, when you say move back one into the 20s. Don't draft a quarterback in the 20s. What's the only one to work out ever? Like Aaron Rodgers, basically. Otherwise, you get your Brandon Whedons and Johnny Manziels and Paxton Lynch's. Like, if he's your guy, take him at 12. But I will ask you this. If we look at Bo Nix and a Sean Payton offense, we can get excited about that. But does Nix almost give Payton an extra swing? Meaning he can start right away. I believe he can start right away. Maybe McCarthy needs to sit for a year. Maybe May needs to sit for a year. These are conversations. I think Nix can start right away, which then might give Payton an extra swing in a couple of years if Nix doesn't work out. I don't want to think that way. Magical thinking, Mace. But it's like, all right, if you're sitting on McCarthy for a year, when he's ready, he better be ready. With Nix, he's kind of what he is right now.
Or maybe the extra swing is on day 3. You could talk me into Bo Nix and Joe Milton.
Easily.
And Joe Milton would be the kind of the ideal sort of quarterback to be talking about here, because if you put Joe Milton's arm strength into Bo Nix, I'm sorry, Caleb, number 1 overall pick would be Bo Nix. I firmly believe that because it's the howitzer that Bo Nix doesn't have. Well, Joe Milton, that's easy gas, that's easy cheese right there. Like but when you watch him throw underneath, we saw this in Mobile, we saw this in Indianapolis. He's trying too hard. He's having to concentrate too much on trying to rein it in, and that in turn limits his accuracy. So Joe Milton has to, in terms of generating the rhythm and timing elements that you'd need, Joe Milton has to be rebuilt from the ground up. But you can do that while maintaining the natural arm talent. Like you can keep the driver in his bag. I mean, I'm Joe Milton is the only option. If the Broncos don't pick a quarterback until round 6 and pick Joe Milton, I'm like, okay, that's not a solution here. But Joe Milton partnered with Bo Nix, and then that's your second swing. And then if neither of those swings work, and this is the key though, you've got to do well enough on the field for Sean Payton to be around for the 2026 swing, right?
Right. Is
Sean Payton around to take that 2026 swing without making the playoffs? And that's another interesting thing there, right?
Right.
He probably has to have a playoff team by 2025. Otherwise, someone else is taking that swing in 26. So, yeah, like you could think that way. I'm just not sure that actually happens, right?
Right. Well, I know if you move up in this draft, you're not getting Milton. Unless he's undrafted and would actually choose you. But moving up means, okay, here's the guy. He's the guy. Taking Nix at 12, which he should go there. He should be a top 15 pick. I don't want to move back. I don't like that idea. Someone could steal him away. But, like, you get Nix, yeah, sure. Milton 6th round. Sounds pretty good.
I agree. I think if you still get him there, I think you're feeling pretty good. But we'll have to do a Joe Milton show coming up here.
Sure.
Because when you get beyond like the first 3 rounds, he's the one who fascinates me the most. And again, not a primary solution, but if you told me you took a round 6, dart throw on Joe Milton and had him incubating there. And again, you've got the resource to teach him, right? We've talked about this. You have Sean Payton, Joe Lombardi, Pete Carmichael, Davis Webb. Okay. There's the bandwidth exists in the Broncos building to make sure everybody gets enough individual coaching in terms of quarterbacking. Right. So that's something that I think comes into play. We got a clip from Bo Nix here. I'm going to get into this. Of course, you and I talked with Bo Nix down at the Senior Bowl, part of a little media gaggle that was down there at the end of January. And I asked him what he wanted to convey to teams in the interview process. By the way, you asked at the end, and this clip is on there, about the comfort level under center, and he had that very kind of short, snappy answer.
Very curt.
You'll hear that. But let's take a listen to the Q&A that you and I had with Bo Nix, or part of the Q&A that you and I had, because there's something that he says in one of the responses to me that I think is really worth exploring. Let's roll that beautiful bean footage.
When you interview with teams, what are the most important things that you want them to learn about you in the process?
Probably my knowledge of the game. I just want them to understand the efficiency and the productivity that we had at Oregon the last 2 years, and just the freedoms that we had, and just from what it looks like overall as an offense and how we operated. And at the same time, they can watch film and see everything they need to know from a physical standpoint, but it's just kind of getting to know you and understanding what's in your mind, I think, is the most intriguing part.
When you interview, how do you make sure that you nail the whiteboard part of the interview?
I just be yourself and just speak about what you learn and just talk about what you know. And I think that part, to be honest, is sometimes the easiest, because you just kind of, football is football. You just let the rules take over, and it's universal terms, but you just kind of show what you know.
What's your comfort level like with taking snaps from under center?
100% comfortable.
He refers to, in the offense, the, quote, freedoms that we have, unquote, the freedom that the quarterback has to operate pre-snap and diagnose. And this is part of Bo Nix's strengths, that he is smart. We're not going to, you don't question the football IQ, and there's been a lot of praise for the process, or at least as we've seen it in college level of Bo Nix. So that I think is telling, but also the ability to capably make a protection change, make a read pre-snap, and the mental acuity that he has in that environment. That's something that I think will and may already have intrigued Sean Payton.
Yes, very much so. And I know it's a Tuesday, and we don't do hot takes on this show, Mace. I actually have a really negative opinion on hot takes, but I'll tell you this. If you add Bo Nix with Sean Payton, there's a possibility, and again, everything's possible, but there's a possibility he's the best quarterback from this class. Okay? Because the Bears are going to screw up Caleb Williams. That's what the Bears have done, right? Show me a quarterback the Bears have developed. He doesn't exist, right?
Sid Luckman, but he's been dead, unfortunately, for a while.
Yeah, it's been a minute. Let's say Harbaugh gets J.J. McCarthy, right? Oh, and he trades away Justin Herbert. Okay, yeah. But if you give me Nix with Payton, there's an opportunity for that combination to be the best. Because remember, we're talking fit. It's about the combination. It's not just McCarthy. Who's McCarthy playing for? It's not just about Drake May. Drake May with Kevin O'Connell could be significant, right? Especially with Darnold there to give that kid some more time. But if you give me Nix and Payton together, there's a chance. Maybe it's 5%, 1%, 10%. Give me a number. There's a chance he's the best in the class.
Well, to illuminate your point here, I think everyone should ask themselves this. Would Brock Purdy be what we have known him to be if he had not gone to play under Kyle Shanahan?
Not at all. And what would Mac Jones have been if Kyle would have got him? You know what I mean? It's part of the conversation.
Yeah. Environment matters, fit matters. But the thing is, there does come a point where a quarterback is usually too far down the path to change, right? That once and I'd say probably that point is 3 or 4 years in, it's going to be hard to get the bad habits out that you may have learned from a environment that was not conducive to your development. And as a result, that might be where you are what you are. I think a great example of that is David Carr, who, look, I know way back you liked him. I liked him back in 2002. But he goes to an expansion team that couldn't protect him. And what it leads to is the internal clock for the pass rush malfunctioning.
Right.
And there were a couple of attempts to try to remedy that. Gary Kubiak in 06 coming in as Houston Texans coach made a little bit of progress, but not enough. And then Carolina with Mike McCoy brings him in 07. Carolina's plan was we're going to sit David Carr for a year, let him get fixed, and then let's see where he is in 08, and maybe he can challenge Jake Delhomme, then the starter. Of course, Delhomme tears his UCL on his elbow week 2 of 07, and piss poor planning leads to piss poor results. The Panthers all of a sudden didn't have another option and had to put Carr out there, and he wasn't ready. And basically that doomed him. That was it. It was a backup from there, and that was the end of it. So you get the point is you get a quarterback young and you get him as a rookie and you start building him up. That's where you have the best chance to get the maximum from that quarterback. And I'm with you, Cecil. I do not think it's preposterous, any of these quarterbacks, which I think if we're talking about the Broncos getting one of the top 6 quarterbacks. So I don't think it'll be Michael Penix Jr., but I'm going to include Penix in this.
Yes.
If the Broncos get one of those 6 quarterbacks, I would not at all be shocked if that quarterback that Sean Payton takes is the most successful.
Yes.
Absolutely. It doesn't mean they'll be a Hall of Famer, because I think it's very possible they do well for Sean Payton, and then when Sean, is either dismissed or, rides off into the sunset, it's not quite the same, right? But I do think for a good stretch of the career, you're going to find a successful quarterback in much the same way that the 49ers found a successful quarterback for what they do and what Kyle Shanahan wants in Brock Purdy.
Right. Dirty secret is it's all about fit. And when you talk about sure thing at quarterback, who's a sure thing? Okay. Let's talk about the coaching angle as we wrap up today's show, Mace. Again, much respect for Kevin O'Connell. I do love Brian Daboll, but man alive, I think he's a better coordinator than he is a head coach. But when we talk about that fit, and then we talk about like a magnifier, I'm not going to bring up like Dungeons and Dragons, right? But you throw down that extra card, this magnifier of Sean Payton, no matter who it is. And that's why you and I have both been preaching this. Like, I prefer McCarthy. I prefer May. Like, I prefer Sean Payton. So when Payton finds his guy, let's flip and go Broncos.
Yeah. And you know what? I mean, it kind of got me thinking here. I should almost do a ranking and write down like best situations, right? Mm-hmm. Because I would say the best situations for quarterbacks among the possible places they could end up, the best 3 are Sean Payton, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota, and I'm not talking about this guy as a head coach. I'm talking just about purely coaching the quarterback, Cliff Kingsbury under Dan Quinn in Washington.
Yes.
And I think those are better situations than what you have in Chicago, what you have building in New England, and if Las Vegas enters the chat, what they have. I think there's a clear separation between those top 3 and the next 3, and it would not at all surprise me if that bears itself out in the eventual outcome of the quarterbacks who get taken in this year's draft. That those top 3 situations, Washington with Kingsbury, Denver with Payton, Minnesota with O'Connell, that those 3 quarterbacks end up having the best results.
That's why I love doing a show with you, brother. You give me chills just talking about this, because it's true. It's absolutely true. We got an abbreviated show today. We appreciate everyone out there for watching. Again, y'all got us over 10,000. Let's make it 20, right? Let's do that thing. So, and let's do the opposite thing, Mace, so I won't screw it up today. Ready? How do you help us out on YouTube?
Like,
comment,
share,
subscribe,
hit that notification bell
so that you never miss a vid.
My bad. I got it wrong today. I went in the wrong direction at first. Sorry.
Fine. It's fine. It's totally fine. And Bo Nix of the Broncos would be totally fine. He's Mace. You follow him on all the socials at Mace Denver. I'm at Cecil Lammey saying OBT is ABFD. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And would you please stay frosty?